Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Josephine Jen Morgan. I'm the coordinator of the Pre-Health Professions Program at the University of Arizona in the A Center. And today we're going to have a workshop today really to focus on the question that you should be asking yourself, not only getting into your health profession program, but specifically, how do you finance that? And so today's workshop is really to focus on our military health profession scholarship that's out there. Many students utilize that, and we have 2 alumni that are on the panel today, along with our financial aid person from the College of Medicine, Tucson. And so today the first part of it is gonna really cover just general information about the financial aid process, maybe some payback programs. And so our representative from there will actually give you that insight for the first 15 minutes. And then after that, we're gonna spend most of it talking about the military health profession scholarship. And all branches of the military do provide that. So our guests will be talking about that. And so what I'd like to do is have our panelists introduce themselves, and then I'll have the rest of the advisors introduce themselves. So let's go ahead and start with Brianna.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brianna DeHone, and I'm a 4th-year medical student here at the University of Arizona in Tucson. I graduated from the U of A in 2016 and was a pre-health ambassador. I chose to go with the Navy for my medical profession scholarship, and I commissioned as an officer right when I got into medical school before I started my first year. I'll be going on to anesthesia at Ohio State University, so doing a civilian deferred path is what they call it, and then being paying my time in the Navy after. Thank you.
Perfect. And Eric?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Lieutenant Eric Lemister. I am a 4th-year medical student at Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine in Pennsylvania. I graduated University of Arizona in 2015. Took 2 gap years and then went to BCom in Pennsylvania. I will be in the Eglin Family Residency class of 2024 starting this summer. And in the Air Force, obviously, and will be giving back my time after.
Perfect. And Yami?
Hi, everyone. My name is Yamne Callejas. I'm the financial aid counselor here at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. So yeah, I've been working for the financial aid office for about 4 years now. So any questions, feel free to come to me.
Perfect. Thank you. And Lauren?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Wisley. I am the newest pre-health advisor with the A Center.
Ethan.
Hi, I'm Ethan Bull. I'm a pre-health advisor in the A Center as well, and I've been here for a while.
And Renee.
All right, my name is Renee Lozano. I am a pre-health advisor, and I actually work with our pre-health ambassadors here at the center.
And I really want to stress that, this program today, this workshop today wouldn't happen without our guests today who offered and who were past pre-health ambassadors in our office, helping to do outreach, have been there, done that. We're really, blessed to be able to have them here to share their knowledge, and they're willing to, give you the insight, right? A lot of things you hear from recruiters might be a little bit different than the real life, what happens when you do get the scholarship, what are your commitments? I see smiles, so that's great. And so we want to make sure that this is really an upfront, answer Q&A, finding out what is it, because a lot of students do look at, how do I finance my education? What do I do once I get in, and that sort of thing. So today's workshop really focuses on that. So we want to kick it off with our financial aid representative to talk about that. And let me make sure, yes, you can share your screen if you need to, and we'll go ahead and start with our financial aid piece.
Thank you. Let me give you 1 second. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Yes, okay, okay. So hi, we're gonna be speaking about the health professions scholarship program, mainly here at the College of Medicine for the University of Arizona, and how it works with your cost of attendance, and also with other financial aid besides the scholarship. So again, there is a financial aid office just for the medical students on campus. We are a two-person team. It's Jessica LeDuc, the director, and myself. So we are one of the colleges that has its own financial aid office. A lot of the other colleges have to go directly to the main campus office. Okay, so let's talk about the scholarship. So the scholarship is a scholarship for students who are interested in the Army, Navy, and Air Force after graduation from medical colleges. It's for students who want to attend medical or dental school. These scholarships offer funding for students for tuition up to 4 years. Also living expenses, so rent, food, miscellaneous expenses, as well as educational expenses. So it does cover books and supplies and fees and other equipment that students may need. In order to qualify, you must be eligible to join the military. You do need to be a U.S. citizen. You need to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited school. And you do need to be a full-time student during your time that you have the scholarship. And then lastly, you need to qualify as a commissioned officer. The scholarship does have an obligation after graduating. In return for scholarship benefits, you do need to agree to serve one of the branches after residency. So Army, the Air Force, or the Navy. The obligation is 1 year of service per year of scholarship support. So basically, if you obtain the scholarship for 3 years, you need to serve at least 3 years. But there is a minimum of 2 years of service. So what that means is if you only receive it for 1 year, you'd still need to serve at least 2 years. And that doesn't count residency. So all scholars are required to apply for the military residency programs, and it's separate and independent military match. There is a separate and independent military match. Sometimes you can make a request to serve in the civil residencies, but you would need to request that. So yeah, let's go on. So what I'm going to talk to you all about today is if you can combine financial aid with the HPSP scholarship. And the answer for that is yes. The thing is that the HPSP funds cover most of your cost of attendance. So they do cover tuition, your cost of living and supplies. So most of the time you don't need other financial aid to have money during your medical school. But if you do need additional financial aid, we go through the Fafsa like any other program. We do require the Fafsa to be submitted at least by March 1st of that year that you're going to be able to, that you need the financial aid for. You will need the normal information, which is social security number, your driver's license, and prior tax year information. Okay, so just quick FAFSA tips. Just make sure you submit your FAFSA. Again, at least by March 1st. It's not a deadline, but it's like the service priority deadline for our college. Complete your FAFSA with exactly how you see it on your social security card. So your social security number as well as your name. If your taxes have not been filed, I do recommend to submit your tax information, an estimate of your tax information. It is prior tax year, so 2 years ago. So most of you would have your your taxes completed. But if for some reason you had an extension or you haven't completed your taxes, you can use estimates. For a lot of medical schools, you won't need parental information. So you don't have to submit your parents' information because you are considered independent. And then for the U of A, it's the same school code as the main campus, which is 001-083. Okay, so the types of aid that you may qualify for. So aside from the scholarship, from the HPSP scholarship, there are two other loans that you may qualify for, which are the unsubsidized loan and the graduate plus loan. The unsubsidized loan is the loan that does not require a credit check. It's usually also the loan that has a lower interest rate, but both of these loans do accrue interest while you're in school. Graduate students and professional students do not qualify for need-based aid, which are the Pell Grant and the subsidized loan. So what that means is that the subsidized loan doesn't accrue interest, but that's only for undergraduate students. So the reason, so if you do apply for Fafsa, you will be reviewed for these two loans. And what we do is we usually start with the unsubsidized loan because it does have a lower interest rate. So we first award the unsubsidized loan. But the reason why we offer the Graduate Plus loan is because there is a limit per year as well as per lifetime. So as you can see in this graph, medical and dental students are considered part of the HEAL program, which is the Health Education Assistance Loan, because their cost of attendance is usually greater than a regular graduate student. Their unsubsidized loan limit is higher than a regular graduate student. So for a first year, right now they are enrolled in 10 months. So their unsubsidized loan for the first year, they can qualify up to $42,722. That's the reason why we award the unsubsidized loan, because most of the time, their cost of attendance is higher than the $42,722. So here's an example. Well, the Graduate Plus loan, there is no annual maximum and there's no lifetime cap, but we can only award it up to your cost of attendance. And as most of the time, HPSP students don't receive the Graduate Plus loan because the scholarship and the unsubsidized loan cover the full budget. So most likely you wouldn't have enough room in your budget to receive the Graduate Plus loan. And I'll show you some examples of the cost of attendance, which is the budget. So basically for an Arizona resident, this is what it would cost you in 1 year. So tuition is about $34,000 for an Arizona resident. We also award for educational related expenses and cost of living. So the total is $62,314 right now for a first year student. So that includes rent, housing, utilities, and other living expenses, as well as educational expenses such as books, medical insurance, computer, and loan fees. And the only difference between a resident and an out-of-state student is tuition. So the reason why the budget for an out-of-state student is higher is because the tuition and fees are a lot higher than a regular resident student. So here's an example of what your award package would look like. So if you do have the scholarship, like I said, the scholarship will award for tuition expenses. So this is an example of an award package of a current student that we currently have as a first year student. So for tuition, he received a scholarship for $34,914 for his tuition and fees. Then he also receives a living stipend. So each month he gets a $2,200 stipend for rent and utilities and other living expenses. So in order for us to be able to award the student up to the full cost of attendance, so up to his budget, so he could have enough for other expenses, we did award the unsubsidized loan for $5,400. The students have an option of accepting the loan if needed. You don't have to. If you do work with the military branches, if they do award you additional funding, you don't have to accept the loan. And if you do receive any other kind of scholarships from outside donors, you also don't have to accept that loan as well. But we do offer it in case it's needed in order to cover the full cost of living and the full cost of attendance. So in order to meet your full budget for that year, we do offer the unsubsidized loan. So because we did meet the 62,000, that's the reason why we usually don't offer the Graduate Plus loan, which is the one with the higher interest rate. And then just an overview of disbursement. The HPSP's tuition scholarship, it's managed and processed by the bursar's office. So the bursar's office will invoice students and send it to the recruiters in order for them to send the payment directly to the bursar's office. So we the financial aid office, don't manage this process. We just see it on the account once it's posted. So that's one thing that we work directly with the bursar's office to make sure that we know what the living stipend is. The living stipend is paid directly to the student. It doesn't go to the bursars. So that's one of the differences with financial aid and the scholarship. It is offered each academic year, so there is paperwork that you need to do each year to receive these funds. The disbursements are split evenly between fall and spring. For medical students here at the U of A, there is no summer or winter term because it usually spans throughout summer and winter. So there's only 2 terms, fall and spring. So there's only 2 disbursements. So usually those disbursements are for 6 months each. The awards are dispersed directly to the bursar's account. So any other awards, so the loans or any other scholarships are dispersed directly to bursars to meet the HPSP funds. And then financial aid and HPSP funds cannot exceed the budget. So that's the reason why we award up to the cost of attendance. Okay, and then I don't know if I'm over time, but these are just some of the resources. I recommend speaking to one of the recruiters or even our guests today for questions. But these are the phone numbers that I would recommend contacting if you are interested in one of the branches. You can also email us if you have questions regarding how you can receive other financial aid or how it's combined with your federal financial aid. And if you have questions regarding like invoices and other stuff like that, you can contact the bursar's office. Okay, so that's about it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. That gives
Yeah.
us a really good foundation of, looking at, how is it distributed and that sort of thing. So thank you so much for providing that information. And again,
Yeah.
that'll be something that students can look up later once we put the recording onto our website.
Yeah.
So we're going to switch gears now in that bringing our panelists in. And again, if there's some financial aid questions that pop up, we'll have someone there too to answer. But I think my first question would be for our panelists is, how did you decide to go after the military health profession scholarship? Did you think about other things? And when did you start thinking about this? How did you get those, thoughts in mind? You're in the midst of applying, you're waiting to hear you get in, and, at what point did that happen? So let's start with Brianna. How did that start?
All right, thank you, Josie. So for me, I didn't really consider applying into the military until about my 3rd year at U of A undergrad. At actually the Pre-Health Professions Expo was where I met my recruiter. And for me, I just really resonated with the camaraderie that was in the military. Definitely not having debt when you graduate from medical school is huge and a really big pull, but understanding what I was getting into. And my recruiter was just so transparent with me. And with the Navy specifically, why I chose that over other branches, coming from a military family with both family in the Air Force and the Navy, I liked that the Navy had a little bit different base locations. That's something to consider, I think, in considering what branch, as far as where you might want to live and be stationed. And another thing I really loved about the Navy was their humanitarian efforts. They have 2 hospital ships, one on each coast, and they respond to a variety of needs in Central South America or to natural disasters, including the tsunamis and hurricanes that have happened in Philippines and Japan. And so that was something I really wanted to be around and be involved in if possible. And so going into that, I was applying to get into the Navy, into the scholarship program about the same time I was applying into medical school. It is a little bit of a longer process because you do have to do, of course, a lot of paperwork with the military beforehand, as well as do some physical fitness assessments and health exams. And that's something that your recruiter will usually set up for you. You have to take a day minimum to be able to do that and get cleared and background checked. So the process itself can take a little while. And so it's nice to give yourself kind of those few months to get there, to not only get into medical school, but also to get everything done.
Wow, that's amazing. So Eric, how did it come upon you to decide to pursue this this medical scholarship?
Just of course, I'm going to add a disclaimer for anything I say going forward. Whatever I say is not representative of the Air Force. It's my own beliefs, perceptions, and opinions, and does not represent. I'm not a recruiter, and yeah, just going forward with that to cover anything I say, just in case. Overall, I was always kind of considering the military in some form or another. A few of my friends joined right after high school. I wanted to pursue more of an education before potentially going in as well. Other benefits there, getting in a higher rank, things like that. But it was always considered. Once I graduated from University of Arizona, I was graduating with a degree in physiology as one of my degrees. And so while applying to medical school and waiting to hear back, taking a few gap years, I was also applying to be an aerospace physiologist, kind of help train the pilots to not pass out when they hit certain, the high Gs, things like that. So I was already looking along that path and talking to a recruiter. When I found out I got into medical school, I just kind of shifted gears and asked them to kind of transfer my paperwork to the other department for the HPSP. So I was considering it for a while. Then actually I'll say I chickened out, for lack of a better words. My wife and I were discussing, we didn't know if we wanted to deal with the commitment. It's, everybody's biggest fear. What is it actually going to look like? I didn't have enough time to do enough research, I don't think, personally, before fully diving in. So I did not get the scholarship my first year. I ended up applying for the scholarship while I was in my first year of medical school, and I signed on for the 3-year scholarship program. So they've paid my second, third, and fourth year. It really helped when I saw the total accumulation of my bills, living expenses, everything like that for my first year of medical school. And when that roughly $80,000 bill hit, I realized I didn't want 4 more of those plus interest. So I took reassessed everything and decided to go back to where I was and finish with my recruiter and continue on through there. Specifically why the Air Force, I was getting my private pilot license before even college, and I've always loved flying. And there's specific residencies. Even after residency, I can even do a flight surgeon, where you kind of fly on a plane, transfer patients, things like that. So I highly consider that potentially going forward. So I want to leave that door open. When considering the bases, Navy does have really good bases. Some of the Air Force bases are kind of out in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't sure entirely too, though. I would never want to be on a boat, though. So that kind of scares me. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't go Navy, but there's Air Force and Navy, great options. That's pretty much everything on my take of that so far. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So knowing what you know now, and again, kind of knowing the inside scoop, what things would you tell undergrads who are considering this scholarship? What should they consider? Some of the benefits, some of the things that maybe you were hesitant about, but overall, just share your experience. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll hop in real quick. When listening to the PowerPoint and watching that, just to lay out some of the ease of getting the financial aid. I never see the bills from my school. It just goes right in, and I get the living stipend direct deposit. So that process is extremely smooth. I've never had to take any extra loans since then. My cost of everything has been completely covered, which is great. So that's just what I wrote down as a quick note for that. So that was a great benefit. So the living stipend really helps cover everything. Specifically things that weren't completely covered. So the stipend is for 10 months out of the year. And then every student, HPSP recipient, has to be active duty for 45 days out of the year. That's some arbitrary kind of Congress law. It works out to where the first ADT, it's called active duty tour, 45 days, is usually when you go to training. So that's 5 weeks, now it's 8 weeks for the Air Force. I don't know exactly how long it is for Navy and Army. They're all a little bit different, but it's an officer training course, which we can get into a little bit more of what that's like. But that's 45 days on your first active duty tour your first year, and then you use the later ones to do your audition rotations. So when you interview at a residency program you think you want to go to, you're active duty during that time. So you have to wear the uniform full time. You know, you've gone to the training at that point, so you know how to salute, how to talk, how to do all the correct Air Force or military type salutes and courtesies, customs and courtesies. And then you audition there you'll be active duty for those 45 days. And then you go back to civilian. Because of COVID, my last ADT was just a campus tour. So I just got paid and was technically active duty, but just went to my regular hospital and did my regular rotation.
Brianna?
Well, Eric, I'm so glad you brought up the ADT. So for the Navy, I will just say that it is 5 weeks still. And like Eric said, usually you take that after your first year in medical school, first year of the scholarship. And for the Navy, it's out in Rhode Island. And kind of, as Eric said, it's really learning how to put on your uniform correctly, how to salute, learning what the ranks are within your department. And basically so that you can, when you go on to active duty, after either medical school or residency, you actually have a sense and a little bit better vocabulary going on. Because for the medical and dental branches, you're not necessarily out there on the front lines doing, I think, what we have as a stereotypical military vision. You really get to relax a lot more. I think that was one thing that I was very surprised about and kind of had different expectations going in. Kind of signing up for this military scholarship, it does sound a little bit scary and daunting sometimes, but as far as going through the medical or even the dental route, it's really pretty nice, and they really take care of you, knowing that may not be a soldier for the rest of your life, but you haven't been exposed to any kind of military background before previously, which is how most students are, so don't be deterred by that. And they really just make sure that you know what you're doing, but you're still getting to do your job. For us, usually we're doctors and we join the military. And it's kind of your own personal, I guess how I've kind of processed it, how you combine those two together. And so that's kind of how I've really experienced it in the training. For as far as keeping up physical fitness standards, they're usually pretty reasonable too. It's based off of gender as well as your age, or you put in a bracket of your minimum requirements that you have to do. So for the Navy, they just changed their physical fitness test, where you have to do a mile run. You can do other forms of cardio as well, meeting their requirements such as rowing or swimming, and then doing planks and other kind of activities as well. So making sure you have good core, arm, and endurance strength as well.
I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any advisors or any of the guests. I know we had a student enter the room, so if any questions for the panelist.
I have a question. So I know Eric mentioned like a spouse. So does the stipend or whatever aid you get change if a person, like an applicant or a person who applies to this, has a spouse or dependents? I know for some students, that may be their case. So does that change? Does the amount increase? Or, I guess what are some of the things their significant other or dependents benefit from?
So the stipend is the same, I believe, regardless of whether you're with somebody or not. But when you're active duty for those 45 days, you're getting full officer pay as an O1 or second lieutenant for the Air Force. So during that time, when you have a dependent, then you do get an extra stipend. How a military pay works is there's a base pay based on your rank, and then there's a BAH or basic housing allowance, and then you get another BAS, which is basic substance allowance. So for like food and things like that, which is an extra like roughly $200 to $300 depending on. I mean, it's still a little bit extra, which is nice, but they're separated out. The BAH and BSA are not taxed even going forward anytime. So that is increased a little bit when you have dependents. So the 45 days each year, you do get a little bit extra.
I'll just add that when you're on active duty training, you're with the benefits, that includes like health insurance as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think dependents do have access to those benefits through TRICARE as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Also, when I was going to my commissioned officer training, or COT, while I was gone in Montgomery, Alabama for the month, my wife was still here. She still got the basic housing allowance and all that. And we also got like a separation pay and some extra like bonuses, how in a military always kind of tax on a little bit extra, which was nice.
Can I ask you a question? So I have plenty of students that ask me about the scholarship and they're thinking about it. And one thing that they often ask is, you know, how they know if the military is right for them, and whether this is going to be a good fit. Do you have any advice for students who are thinking, I'm not entirely sure if the military is the right route? It's attractive, or else they wouldn't be asking about it, but they're not entirely sure. Is there any place they can go? I mean, I know recruiters can give them the sales pitch, but are there other resources they can use to get a realistic kind of pros and cons perspective on whether it's going to be a good fit for them?
I always think just talking to anybody that you know potentially. One of my classmates, my first year at medical school, he was previously in the Army and he was getting the Navy HPSP. So I just talked to him, and after kind of really bouncing ideas off what it was like enlisted, what it's like being an officer, everything military wise, just talking to him really put my mind at ease. And that's what kind of helped me really go for the scholarship moving forward. A lot of what I did beforehand though was just online research. So Student Doctor Network still has a good few feed threads of just, you know, students. You'll obviously get polarized of both. Some doctors that love their experience, other doctors that kind of hated their experience. So it's really good to see both ends of the spectrum. A lot of things that help too are kind of like spouse blogs. That really helped my wife and I get a different perspective. So when, you know, if the doctor doesn't have time to tell them what it's like or type up a blog, the spouse often does. And so reading from their perspective what the military is like, what was extremely beneficial going forward also.
Yeah, I really have to agree with Eric that talking to people really is the best way to go. And I really like that he mentioned, especially if you have a significant other, going out and finding those resources to get their perspective is huge. And I will just add that coming in being a single female, you definitely have different considerations, especially with the military and family planning. There are different kind of considerations when, if you're going to be moving all the time, is that something you would like for your family if you stay in the military? If you go civilian like the route I'm doing, there's different restrictions on when you can come onto active duty if you are pregnant or not, and how that works. And so that's, I think, always a consideration. So especially for those females out there who are considering it, I would really suggest to seek out female guidance, specifically addressing that. Seek out people who have families and how they've managed it, how they've tried to find that balance that's always changing, and what their path has been like. Because I think that is super helpful as well, because we are doctors, we are in the military, but we also have lives outside of that, and trying to figure out what picture you want to see for yourself in the future, and getting those perspectives is equally as important.
One last piece on that. I feel like as our personality, you know, sometimes, oh, the commitment is a scary thing. But the personality of the general medical student, you're committing yourself to hours and hours of study and committing yourself to medical school, which is 4 years of knowing exactly what you're going to be doing. 3.5 years from now is sitting down, reading a book and studying still. And then you know that residency will be afterwards too, which is a minimum of 3 years, maximum of like 7 years. So kind of that puts, I don't know, when you explain it like that sometimes too, we're already kind of people of commitment almost. And that just kind of puts your mind at ease of just not panicking, going, oh my gosh, I'm signing on for this. Like, well, you're already signing on for 7 years minimum of just in medicine.
So moving forward, what things do you consider, as like what individuals think about as far as like residencies? Are there limitations? What kind of things would you share with anybody asking about this scholarship?
I guess I can talk on this. So the residency, I know what one of the major fears is people think they'll be limited in their decision making. I think every specialty is represented some way, but then there may not be a lot of spots. I think there's only 2 dermatology spots this last year, but I think it's usually 1 to 3 people applying for that specific spot. So it's usually not too difficult. They seem to represent about 90% fill rate for almost most specialties, it seems, give or take, obviously. But getting into your chosen residency, you can kind of, where you're going to fall almost when you're applying, because it's a rank-based point system, which it's not totally straightforward, like here's where your points are. But if you do enough research, you can kind of find out roughly what your board scores are, where your GPA was for your first 2 years, didactic years, and then where GPA is for your 3rd and 4th year, whether you have very strong letters of recommendation, whether you have research, and then what separates those, which every medical student has, there's extra points awarded for prior service, or if you did GMO, general medical officer tours. So you already have a few years in, that's just a general medical officer, and you're reapplying for residency. And the benefits of that are you get the more points, so you're more likely to get your top choices. So if you have very average board scores, okay letters of recommendation, you know right where you fall with, maybe you might get your first choice family medicine, but if you might be scraping to get a spot for orthosurg, if at all, or that, so you might choose to just do an internship year, maybe GMO, then reapply, and you have enough points to get an ortho spot. So it can be a longer route, but I feel like if you really try, you can get whatever position you want if you stick in there long enough.
Yeah, for the Navy, it's very similar as far as residency. Kind of as Eric said, you can go the military match route, which is the point system, or civilian. And so how you decide as far as which specialty is offering which spots. For the Navy, they usually release a document every year that will say how many spots are available within each specialty, and if a specialty is going to be offering civilian deferment, which is called the NADS program, NADDS. And with that, you can apply for that specialty through the specialty advisor, specifically if you want that deferment and you rank that first. If not, then you go into that military match for the intern year, which for the Navy, it'll usually be at San Diego, Portsmouth, or Bethesda in your specialty of internal medicine, surgery, a transitional year. You're kind of doing those interviews, and as Eric said, after that, then you have to usually enter in your other match as well. That's only a 1-year commitment. And after that, that's usually where people, at least from my experience and my colleagues that I met at training, will then go on to their GMO tours, the general medical officer tours that Eric mentioned earlier. And that can be either on a submarine, which is one that's really difficult to get into from what I've heard from friends. You can do a flight surgery tour as well, or just a general medical officer. You can also go with the Marines as well. There was mention that there was an aerospace option, but I'm not sure if that is still on the table. That was mentioned during my training. But with that, you'll go, and that's usually a 2 to 3 year commitment. So after that, then you'll re-enter the match. But now you have the military experience that Eric mentioned. That is part of your point system for the military match. Now you have accrued those points. which is really helpful if you want to go back into a military residency.
Wow, that's amazing. Anybody else have questions?
I do. I'm wondering, what happens after you're done, right? So you do medical school and then you do your residency, and you're committing a certain number of years. Is it common that people stay connected to the military, or do they generally, after they've done those number of years that they're committed to, do they generally move into civilian life?
I've seen a mix of both, honestly. I don't think one way is skewed more than the other. I think it depends not only on your specialty, but personality, family, and where you're located too. Some of the biggest considerations, at least I've heard from many mentors that I've had or been in contact with. And so I think it really comes to that personal decision. It's definitely an option to be able to do so. And I think one of the benefits is that within the military, especially coming out as a young attending physician right out of residency, you do get a lot of not only really good experience, but also a lot of responsibilities as well. Some young attendings I met were put into leadership positions really quickly in their hospital and their organization, and that is something that they absolutely loved. And so they knew that whether they stayed in the military or if they went civilian, they had that experience, which made them more marketable for jobs at wherever they wanted.
I'll agree. I've definitely met current attendings that have done both a full career and have done just a few years and have then gotten out. I feel like it also really depends on the specialty. I know specifically anesthesiology, they have a really hard time retaining anesthesiologists, mainly because just the pay differences is a major factor. And it is difficult because you get paid as a military officer first, and then you can get bonuses from then on. Being in the medical field, being board certified, specifically whichever field you're in, pediatrics and family medicine get paid on the lower end, surgeons, radiologists, and anesthesiologists get paid on the higher end. But if you amateurize everything, for family medicine, I did that, and it works to about 10 years roughly is kind of when the financial aspect changes for me. Of I make more money on my 11th year if I switch to civilian. There's so many different aspects that you can kind of factor in on that. Obviously, not just in it for the financial reasons. You're taking care of a great population, not having to deal with insurances. There's so many benefits, which I love hearing military doctors talk, where it's like, I didn't know I'd have to fight with all these insurances. When you order something in the military, they just get it. So that's kind of a huge bonus. I'm with an attending right now on radiology who did a full 20 years. He retired at 45 years because he got into medical school at 20. He went to USIS, which I probably always pronounce wrong, but the Uniformed Health Services, which is a medical school directly in the military. And while you're in medical school, it counts as active duty time, which counts towards retirement. So he got to retire at 25, and now he's civilian private practice, but he still gets a full-time military pension. He still gets health insurance for him and his kids up to 26, but him and his wife forever. So kind of seeing where the country's at, where everything's at, where healthcare's at in the future, that could be a big piece as well. My wife, she comes from a strong Air Force family as well. Her grandfather was a World War II bomber. He had multiple open heart surgeries a few years ago, and we saw the bill, and it would have been $961,000. And her grandmother goes, "Oh, yeah, we're TRICARE for life. We don't pay any of the bills. Just shred that." And so that's when my wife kind of turned to me and was like, "Okay, I'm on board." So there's so many different aspects that kind of help get you there. So, I mean, technically retiring at 48 for me and then doing civilian or something else sounds good to me. So that's my current path, is staying the full time.
So do we have a lot of U of A College of Medicine students in this program, or no?
Yeah, so we currently have, I think, about 6 students. Each class is about 120 students. So it's not that many, but we do have a couple, yeah.
Can I ask one more question? How does it feel to be in medical school as and also in the military? Is your experience a little bit different? Do you feel different than the other medical students? A slightly different path, or is it kind of like just this extra thing about you that it doesn't necessarily define your experience beyond those 45 days that you have during your experience?
I feel like even the websites and stuff always tell you you're a student first, and that I feel like is really true. The military has pretty much had no say in my day-to-day, except for when I go on the 45 days active duty, for when I went to training. That was really the only time where I felt really in the military, which was great. I actually had a fun time at my officer training. But I feel like there's the added benefit, not only, okay, it's a stipend, living expenses, but I feel like there's a real peace of mind, where I can afford rent, I can go do a rotation over there, and I know that I have the funding to kind of do so, where everybody else is, I have this much to last for the year. Can I go do a rotation out in Maryland and then maybe go see Minnesota? Can I work both of my ideal locations? People in my situation that aren't HPSB really, I feel like, stress a little bit on trying to get everything they want. So yeah, the peace of mind, I think, is a great added bonus, not just financially, but.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off that idea, I definitely saw quite a few students in my class who were waiting for their financial aid to kick in and actually couldn't register for some of their board exams. Had to register a little bit later for that. Where for us in HPSP, we're able to pay for it if we have the funds, and then we get reimbursed completely for all of our board exams, which is huge because some of them cost thousands of dollars. I think the mindset as far as my medical student experience being in the military, like Eric said, like we're not recruiters, we're not representing anything specific information, but just our own personal experiences. And for me, I think after I came back from my training after first year and realizing that I am a student, but because I'm also in the military, I am representing the core values of my department. And because of that, I think it's a little interesting as just start acting with the same integrity that I've always had and the pride that I had now because of being in the military. I think it was just a little bit different. And so that was something that I felt personally and really tried to champion because it is a special thing. I know we only have 4 people in my class, including myself, who are doing the HPSP scholarship out of, like we said, 120. So it is something that does make you stand out a little bit, and people kind of do watch you for that. You kind of get a sense of what military would be like by watching how you handle yourself and how you conduct yourself and how you represent the values of your respective branch.
If I can add in one more thing too. So when you go to training, you learn how to salute, the customs and courtesy and everything, but there's obviously a lot of like added leadership training that you do. And I feel like most medical students kind of are leaders in of themselves because they know they're going to be a leader in the community. But at training, we also really learn kind of fellowship, how to be a follower, which was, I think, the most difficult thing for all of us to learn at the training. And I feel like that really helped kind of build us into members of a team. So when you go on auditions and you go on interviews, there's other students there and they want a position too. But really knowing how to approach yourself, how to work as a team better, how to build them up can also make you look better, and I feel like that's certain things that you learn, the integrity, kind of excellence first, all of those things you can put forth more easily because you're kind of innately trained now. So I feel like that kind of helps. Yeah, when the eyes are on you, you're not stepping forward trying to be a gunner. Helping others kind of shows that you know what's needed in the situation, and that kind of is better in and of itself going forward because anybody can get to the answer, but helping those around you and working as a team is is extremely beneficial, especially to residency programs and just our profession overall. Not just trying to fake it, but actually doing, what we want to do.
Because everyone at your training is might be someone that you are going to be auditioning with usually, because they're all in the same year as you. We had a class of about 200 people. I would say 90% of us were medical students from across the country. And then when you see them, when you rotate, it just kind of brings that whole family and team feel together, as Eric mentioned, because that is a huge part of it. I'm so glad you mentioned that too. Just made me like kind of get all nostalgic thinking about all the stories that you had with training, which just to ease any kind of like worries out there, it's nothing like a basic training, as we tried to say. It's really more that leadership training and knowing a little bit about your branch so that you feel more comfortable in going into it. And so all those people you're going to see and you're going to interact with pretty much for the rest of your medical school. So you not just only have your medical school class, but you have this other separate class as well. So you just build this amazing network as you go through.
So let me ask, I know that we're running down on time here. Is there anything that we didn't get to ask you that you would like to share with any undergraduate students that maybe we didn't ask you yet?
I have a quick question actually. Sorry I came in a little late, but I'm coming to the U of A this fall of 21. And when do I have to, like, if I were to apply for this, when would I have to apply for this scholarship?
So usually, at least from what I've seen, I don't know exactly for sure, but what I've seen from myself and other classmates is actually pretty quick, especially if you're going to be coming in this upcoming year. But I think Eric might be able to touch a little bit more on this, because there still is a possibility to do a 3-year scholarship as well. And so that's always an option. I don't know if you would like to touch a little bit more on that, because that might be something that would be a little bit better for your particular situation.
Okay.
It's also always just a rolling basis. So there's so many slots per Army, per Navy, per Air Force. And so when they reach the maximum and they still have applicants, they'll then either offer you a 3-year, or if you apply too late or don't get anything in, then you'll kind of automatically be, okay, if you want the 3rd year, then we'll approach you with other options. But yeah, it's my understanding, always just kind of apply concurrently. I have a friend who just, met with his recruiter pretty regularly. They were in the same town close by. And so they talked and pretty much had the application done before he ever got into medical school. And if you don't get in, okay, then just roll it on to the next year. And still have the same pretty much application paperwork. It's a lot of paperwork, which they'll change the dates, update it. And then, but it's pretty concurrent. So once you get the acceptance letter, then you just kind of, dot the I's, cross the T's, and apply fully to the HPSB, which we didn't fully say, but the app, pretty much the minimum GPA is 3.2 undergrad GPA and 500 MCAT. You're pretty much automatically accepted if you have a 3.4 and a 504 MCAT minimum. You're pretty much automatically accepted.
All right. And then when you're talking about like it covers like room, board, and everything, is that for undergrad and med school, or is it just one or the other?
So this scholarship is for your medical school years. So you do need an undergrad career to be able to apply for it. So it'll be once you attend med school that you'll get the stipend and then the tuition and fees scholarship.
Okay. And then I also heard Eric, you talking about this 45-day training period. Is that 45 days every year, or is that just like once?
So active duty time, ADT, is 45 days every year, where you're active duty and you're getting paid full salary and things like that. You only go to training once. So some people usually do it between their 1st and 2nd year. I did it between my 2nd and 3rd. If you can't get it in, I know COVID kind of backed up a lot of it, but it was considered mission essential. So people still went and just had masks. But some people, if you can't get it in for whatever reason, you have certain auditions, something like that, you can still do it after you graduate, but before residency. They'll still work with you and squeeze it in, because they still have almost one every month during the year. But the training's once.
All right, cool. And then since I kind of came in a little late, apologize for that. Is there any way I can get a copy of that PowerPoint that you guys were going over?
Yeah, actually, and this kind of brings me to the wrapping up of the workshop, is that we will have this recording once we fine tune it. It'll be on our website. And so you'll have access to that. All our workshops that we have, in fact, we have another one coming up on personal statement. So we have a series of workshops that are going on, but this will be on the website and everything. The PowerPoint presentation will be there, and then you'll be able to catch the beginning of the presentation. And let me just ask our panelists, is it okay to share your contact information with, let's say, anybody wanting to follow up if they view this, so we can put that on the website? Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank the panelists. Again, you know, these are two alumni of the University of Arizona. Very proud of you. Got into med school and, you know, doing really well. And then coming back and saying, how can we share the information that we've had and share it with people who ask these questions? You know, again, not hearing it just from a recruiter, but hearing it from students who are living, breathing, and, you know, real life questions that they have about the scholarship, because we get asked that all the time. But thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time and being here, and we will definitely stay in touch, because again, we'll have other workshops. And thank goodness for Zoom in that way, is that we can bring you guys in from all over the country. So we're so excited. Thank you again so much. Have a wonderful evening. And I will be sure to share the contact information onto the recording that we have. So have a wonderful evening and take care.